Hello, welcome to another JavaScript tutorial video. This video will cover var, let, and const, the three different ways of declaring a variable in JavaScript. Var is the old way of declaring a variable, and let and const are the modern ES6 ways of declaring variables. So first, let's just cover var very briefly. The main difference with it is that if it is declared in a function, it is function scoped. Otherwise, it is global. And for your let and const variables, they are both block scoped and function scoped, meaning they are only available in the block or function that they are created in. So if you want to think of a function as just another type of block, then you can even just think of let and const as just being block scoped. So var variables, if declared in a function, are function scoped, but there's no mention of blocks in there, right? So for instance, if we were to create a function and declare a variable in it with var, then it would be available only in that function. But if we use something like a loop and tried to use var in here, then this would be available everywhere. So let's look at that kind of one by one here without going through it all at once. So for example, if we log 1 here, this is a globally available variable here. And we get 1. And if we log the test var variable here, which is set to the string test, and we have to, of course, call our function here, then we'll get the string test. However, if we try to access it outside of the function like this, then we're going to get an error. And that's again because we are trying to access a function scoped variable outside of the function, which does not work. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of our console logs here while we look at the loop. Now, this is considered a block of code, and it is a loop, so we could log I every single time in here, and that would work. We get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this would actually be the exact same result with let. And with const, it would not work, because the main difference between a let variable and a const variable is that let can be changed and const cannot. So if we try this, we'll just get an error again. So let's set this back to var though, and instead of logging I every single iteration of the loop, let's try logging I outside of the loop. And this should show that var is a function or global scoped variable, but not block scoped. And this is only a block, not a function. So that's why we are able to access I even though it's declared in this block. If we tried the same thing with let, even though there's no problem with changing a let variable, we still can't access it outside of the block that it was defined in. So I is not defined, right? Here's an example of let being changed here. So our let variable here is called 2. We set it to the number 1, and then we update it to equal the number 2. And we'll actually see both versions here. We'll see the version of the variable 2 that equals 1, and then we'll see the updated version that equals 2. So the const variable, like I was saying earlier, cannot be changed. Here's an example of that. We have logging 3, which works just fine. But if you try to change it, which we'll do in just a moment. Oops, let's hit save. There we go. If we try to change it like this and then log it again, we'll get an error, which is hopefully coming across here. There are instances, though, that you can change a constant variable, and that's when you're not assigning them to be something new, but you're maybe just manipulating their value somehow. So an example would be like this array. So this is totally fine. You can push into an array that's a constant variable. So first we will log the original array, and then we're going to push a 4 into it, and we're going to log it again. This is completely fine. This is not fine. We'll get an error if we do this, because we're setting it to be something brand new. Okay, that's basically it, but this is important. It's the building block of everything with modern JavaScript. I think the main purpose of having these as being block scoped instead of sometimes being globally available is that this keeps things. I think it avoids bugs basically. So if you are using var a lot and you accidentally have some variable that has the same name somewhere else, you might use the same variable name. It might be global, and suddenly you'll run into an error that way. Whereas with this, you can actually use the same variable names, things like that. You're less likely to run into bugs, and yeah, it's just typically better in modern JavaScript development to use either let or const. All right, I hope this is helpful, and I will see you next video, which will likely be going further into the reduce array function.